With the Shorekeeper having released a couple of days ago, we have gotten some time to play around with her. And that got me to think, is she actually better than Verina? I know she is on paper, but some things you'll never know without playtesting. So let's get into it, shall we? First of all, I would like to start with a disclaimer. Both of these units are stupidly broken. Like, absurdly broken even. You literally cannot go wrong with either of these. They each have their own quirks, advantages, etc. Even if I say in this video that one is better than the other, the difference in clear times between the two is not massive. They are both incredibly powerful, and the greatest advantage to Shorekeeper is the fact that you have a second Verina. That'll be enough yap though. Time to actually start comparing them. So first of all, when talking supports in any game really, we have to talk about field time. The thing that sets Verina and Shorekeeper apart from the questionable Baiji is their field time. Baiji's issue is that she has a clunky swap-in and is forced to actually hit with her basics, and if your variation is anything lower than R5, yeah, that's not even enough. Shorekeeper and Verina, however, they have a lot shorter field time when compared to her. But whose is shorter? For that we have to look at their optimal rotations, and then we have to see how flexible they can be with it. The flexibility within your rotation is in my opinion an incredibly big deal, since Wuthering Waves' battles are inherently unpredictable, with enemy attacks that are an actual threat. Starting with Verina, she has two rotations, the normie rotation and the based rotation. Most people will play her starting with her intro skill, followed by some combination of her echo skill and ult, and then finally using her heavy attack and one aerial attack. This is likely the rotation everyone starts out with. After all, given everything you can tell from her kit, this is what Kuro intended. However, if you start optimizing a little bit, you can see that there's a better way. The best rotation is to use the basic attack carryover technique to instantly begin on her third basic, and then go to her fifth. We completely ignore her intro skill. Then, just like in the regular rotation, we use her skill, echo, and ult, and instead of using a heavy attack, we just jump into the air and do two aerial attacks. This is faster. It also allows you to use an extra intro skill into a character who would appreciate it. For example, using an intro skill into Mortefi for extra forte, so that he can regen Concerto energy faster. I will say that this rotation is a bit less flexible. What I mean with flexible is that you can easily change course depending on the situation. For example, swap it to a different character to regenerate some Concerto energy to make the rotation faster later on. Verina having to finish her basic attack string until the 5th hit means that swapping during her basics is not really something you can do. As for the Shorekeeper, her rotation is more set in stone. She wants to enter with her intro skill, do 4 basics, skill echo ult, and then you can swap cancel her heavy attack. This rotation is a lot more flexible, since you are not forced to stay in at any particular point. It can swap out at any point in time that you want to. However, she does essentially need her intro unlike Verina. Its Concerto energy restoration is a big plus for her overall rotation, and without it, she'd need to build up a second heavy attack. But who gets the win here? I'll have to say Verina. Her rotation is overall shorter, and while it isn't as flexible, letting a different character get another intro skill is incredibly valuable. Next point, buffing. This is a lot more numbers based, so this really is my forte. Pun 100% intended. Verina is quite simple. She grants a 20% attack buff when consuming one of her forte stacks, which is happening every rotation, since it's literally a requirement for a good rotation, thanks to its Concerto energy regeneration. It's quite a simplistic buff, but it has its flaws. The main one I want to bring up being the fact that attack percent is a lot less rare than crit. Nearly all the popular buffing sources give attack percent, and if it's not attack percent, it's damage percent. Verina's buff, while quite valuable, is ultimately a drop in the bucket. 15% from Rejuvenating Glow, another 22.5% from Moonlit, and that doesn't even consider the people running attack percent free cost echoes or the fallacy of no return echo. Attack percent is simply less desired than crit. This is the case if the crit is equal in value to the attack percent, but with Shorekeeper's ultimate, her crit value buffing blows the attack percent buff out of the water. Now, Shorekeeper's buff does have some drawbacks, as it's not all sunshine and rainbows. First of all, Shorekeeper's ultimate needs to be built up over time, thanks to it requiring multiple intro skills. Second, she needs to build an actual stat for it, meaning her build matters a lot more than Verina's. To be fair to Shorekeeper though, Verina has ER issues herself, so they are both building infinite ER anyway. But when it comes to the overall quality of the buff, Shorekeeper wins. Her crit buff is just far above Verina's attack buff, especially since 2 intros is the requirement for both crit buffs, and is coincidentally the amount of intros you will likely be doing in the average hypercarry comp. For dual carry, it's less effective, but it doesn't really matter. You'll still get the second intro eventually. For the next segment, I would like to talk about something a bit less relevant, their sustaining capability. Now I know that in this game, it's kill or be killed, and healing is not as relevant. But remember that there's plenty of people who aren't as good at the game as we are, so people are going to care about sustain. First of all, again, Verina. Her healing is not bad at all, but it has some issues. First of all, it's attack scaling. Why does this matter? Well, it's quite simple. Verina just becomes less of a face tanker. But why do I care about this? It's for the very simple reason that if you have a face tanker character with a lot of HP, they're just able to take a lot of hits that you wouldn't regularly be able to dodge. So if you're ever in danger, you could just swap to your HP scaling character and they can take the damage. Sure, this is less effective than dodging, but some people just aren't as good as us at getting the timing down. So ultimately, HP scalers are better at face tanking. Another issue that I see with Verina's ultimate is in multi-wave content. This is because her ultimate applies a mark on enemies, and then when you hit marked enemies, you will heal. However, if the enemy dies, it's not like the mark gets transferred to the next enemy. It will just completely disappear, so you will lose your source of consistent healing. And this can be quite a bummer if you're not as good at the game. Shorekeeper, however, has all the advantages that Verina is lacking. Her healing is not dependent on enemies, so no matter if you kill the enemy, you will still be getting the healing from Shorekeeper's ultimate. Shorekeeper is also HP scaling, which means she can face tank quite a lot of damage if she has to. And that can be pretty useful in some scenarios. In the overdrive zone, I actually had my Shorekeeper there to face tank a lot of the damage that Crownless was doing to me, because my Shengliao or Changli would not be able to take all that damage. And then finally, I would like to discuss the final section, being personal damage. Again, just like the healing section, this is not as relevant as the first 2 sections, but it's still something you should keep in mind. And I think you will agree with me once you hear me out. So, a support character in Wuthering Waves is not exactly there to do damage. A lot of people leave their support characters at level 50 because all they really want is the passives, and really could not give less of a damn about your stats. But Shorekeeper is actually kind of a different situation. Verina is one of those characters you just don't invest into, because you don't have a good reason to if you're good at dodging. However, the Shorekeeper does have some good personal damage in the form of her enhanced intro skill. This is for multiple reasons. First of all, it scales on the same stat that she heals from. This isn't as relevant since Verina is an attack scaling healer and all of her abilities scale on attack, but Shorekeeper's main advantage to her enhanced intro skill is its 100% crit rate. Yes, this intro skill is always guaranteed to crit, and I think that should be mentioned, because that means you can just build infinite crit damage on your Shorekeeper, and you'll still be doing some pretty significant damage with her intro skill. I'm personally doing around 40k damage with my Shorekeeper's intro skill, and while this isn't a lot when compared to someone like Yinlin or Zheji, it's still pretty significant and worth building for, because it's essentially just free damage. But what do you guys think? Do you think Verina or Shorekeeper is better? I'm personally of the opinion that Shorekeeper is a better character, but they are so close, it's honestly kind of irrelevant. They both have their own use cases. Verina is better in dual carry teams due to her easier rotation and not having a backloaded buff, and then Shorekeeper is better in all other teams because her buffing is superior to that of Verina. But again, let me know in the comments section what you think about this. While you're there, might as well like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, join my Discord and follow me on Twitter, which links are in the description. That'll be all from me. Peace.